Hey everybody, it's Leeroy of Leeroy Gaming with another Outriders build for you today. Today I'm sharing with you the Technomancer Venom Symbiote build. Now, this build, unlike most of my other builds, it's not really meant to be groundbreaking or revolutionary. What I wanted to create for you guys was a guide for what I feel like is probably the easiest to build while at the same time most powerful Technomancer build that you can start out with. So it is a Blighted Rounds build. The things I want to focus on this build is not relying on any set bonuses. I wanted to make sure that there were opportunities for the majority of the mods to be either tier 1 or tier 2, with tier 2 and tier 3 options as you upgrade. And I wanted to discuss with you guys different kind of variables where even at the lowest level, if this is your first character and first build, you can still get relatively powerful relatively quickly. And obviously, if you really push this loot and build it out exactly how I have, you can get to some ridiculous numbers and just melt everything in sight. So the Blighted Rounds build, as disclaimer, is not for everybody. It's a very glass cannony build, especially this version. Uh, you'll see the reason I call it the Venom Symbiote build is one, because of the mod that I use as the primary damage modifier on my weapon. And also kind of the helmet I randomly got kind of looked dark and made me think of Venom. So the two things combined, voila, comes my kind of naming for this. But it is a very beginner friendly Blighted Rounds build. So let's go ahead and take a look at what is necessary to get this build off the ground. All right, we're going to start by looking at the skills and then the skill trees. Also, as a reminder, guys, if you want to jump around this video to find areas most interesting to you, do check out the links in the description below. So when it comes to skills, they're going to be very, very simple. The main skill that this all revolves around is Blighted Rounds. You're going to keep this up 100% of the time. That's the goal anyway. It's going to do 99% of your damage. Your Cold Snap, we use this just as an AoE crowd control ability. And Blighted Turrets, while it can destruct the enemies a little bit, do a little bit of damage, the real goal here is it's on a quick cooldown, and you're going to be spamming this to get one of your weapon damage buffs up from the skill tree. So really, it's just a buff button. Your buff button, your crowd control survival button, and your main buff that you need to keep up to do all your damage button. Now let's go ahead and look at the skill tree. Alright, so this skill tree for the most part is very straightforward. I have made one modification to make it a little bit more beginner friendly because again, this is aimed towards the beginners, and I'll show you how you can modify this to make this kind of expert mode. So you're going to go start with a very traditional top pestilence tree. You're going to move up here. You're going to make sure you get a little weapon leech. A big thing here, we don't really care about armor piercing because your Blighted Rounds are going to pierce all armor anyway. But we do care about lowering this distance. So if you're new here, what's important is normally long range damage is considered 18 meters and out. When you pick up these two nodes, it goes down to 12 meters and out, which is huge because that's going to be one of your main modifiers you're going to get is to do more damage when things are far away. As far as buffs, assuming we're going to be using Assault Master because we're going to use assault rifles. And then the big thing here that as far as buff goes, empowering antenna, the capsule is big. This is the only reason you use a Blighted Turret really, is because this is a 10-second buff. You want to be spamming this whenever Blighted Rounds or the Blighted Turret is up to be cast so that you can keep this 40% damage buff. And notice it doesn't just buff you, it also buffs your friends. So if anybody else has got a firepower build, this helps them out as well. Now the one variant here is as we come down here, you're going to notice exposing toxin. That's normal. Adds vulnerability to enemies that have toxic effect on them. And again, your Blighted Rounds will apply that. Toxic or vulnerability, for those that don't know, if you're new, increases all damage taken by the enemies that have the vulnerability on them by 15%. Do be careful. Some old tooltips still say it's 25%. It was in fact nerfed a couple patches back, I believe around V1.04 or or 1.05, one of those two. So it's 15%, but not bad. And the variant we have here is we go down here and we're going to pick up antenna plating, increases your resistance by 20%. This is your damage against anomaly damage. That's what's most likely to one or two shots you currently. And we're also going to pick up armor plating to get your armor up a little bit. There are what are called diminishing returns on armor. Do check out my video that talks about how armor and resistances work if you haven't checked it out already. But basically, when you start, if you don't have any buffs, your armor will probably be a level 50 around 50, 55,000. Even going from 55 to like 70, 80,000 makes a big difference. If you get up above like 150,000, there's great diminishing returns. So if you can just get from even 50 some thousand to 80 or 100,000, big difference. This 20% buff can go towards that. Now, if you're a total badass, you know how to dodge and maneuver, you can get rid of these. You can do a couple of things. First thing you can do is you can get two sides of the power. It'll give you another flat 20% damage. But not only are you going to take more anomaly damage here, 20% more anomaly damage, not 20% more physical, well, more physical damage, but you're going to take an overall 15% extra damage of everything. 15% physical damage, 15% magic or anomaly damage. So this is high risk, high reward, not for beginners. So that's one element that you could, for example, put on there. The other element you could technically put on here is potentially increase your vulnerability with this one point. So it increases by 40%. So you go from 15%, you'll get an extra 40% on top of that. It's not negligible. So again, if you didn't want to go all the way down here, you can put that point in, or you could say, you know what, I don't care about the armor as much, but I still want the anomaly resistance. So maybe you drop this point and get this two sides of the power. But again, be careful. You're already going to be squishy. This point, if you take two sides of the power, it's going to be extra squishy. I recommend that only for more advanced players. All right, boys, let's next take a look at the armor and then the weapons. Now, again, because this is a beginner-friendly build, I'm going to be going over what I currently have, and then I'm also going to be highlighting some replacement mods that you can get that are going to be much easier for you to get if you have very few legendaries so far. Okay, so you will also notice that this doesn't require any set bonuses. In fact, the only legendary piece of armor is going to be the cannonball, gauntlets of the cannonball, which statistically are the easiest and most likely legendary gloves you will get. So it's a meme set, but the gloves are actually very good, like very good, and they have a very important mod on them. So you'll see in a second. But let's start with the helmet. So what's really nice about this is the one mandatory, well, we'll say two mandatory mods on this are bonus firepower and long range damage. Close range damage is a luxury, but you don't technically need it. You're going to be in long range most of the time, which is 12 meters and above because of the way we build out. So you can use cooldown reduction. If you find that blighted rounds is dropping off more than you like, that can help lower your downtime. You could do skill leech to help you heal a little bit more, for example. Those are probably the two most common options for that. But really, if you got a good roll on the mods, you could have it be a dump stat. It could be like healing increased or something like that. Just as long as you have firepower, long power, you're okay. And that's basically the golden rule for all these pieces. Again, if you're trying to be like a beginner and starting out. As far as the mods go, the one that's going to be really easy to get is Rejuvenation. This is a very powerful buff. You will constantly have this up because you have innate life leech. Whenever you do damage, it's going to be up 80% of the time. Do note that as a beginner because it is a 10-second cooldown, but it only lasts 8 seconds. But it's a really good buff. You mainly care about the firepower and the armor. It's going to help you with survivability. It's going to buff this armor right here to over 100,000 because you're going to be multiplying that 40% by an extra 20%. So keep that in mind because of the skills from the skill notes. Now, Sharpeye, it is not a beginner mod, it's a tier 3 mod, but if you can get it, it is phenomenal. You're going to be getting over 50,000 firepower from this. Get this because it's based off kill shots. It's amazing. Again, if you don't have this, I will be going over in just a moment some replacement potential mods. Same rule for your chest piece as far as stats go. You want Bloodlust. Bloodlust, again, not difficult to get. It's a tier 2 mod that you can roll. And it's very, very powerful yet again. Splash Boost is a pure luxury. It's comes off a legendary set piece. It's not super easy to get. If you can get this is a really nice AoE boost to your damage. It's going to make your clears faster, but it's by no means mandatory. Next, we have the lower armor. Now, you're going to get Radical Therapy, and this is going to give you 15% extra damage towards things that have Toxic on them, which is going to be everything you shoot. Now, in a second, you're going to be looking at the upgraded version, the I Stack Euthanizer, that gets 25%. If you don't have that one, this may be the only one you get, which is fine, but again, it's really easy to get. And Crit Stack. Now, Crit Stack, technically, if I were to make one change, if like you're struggling to actually get crits, then get rid of Crit Stack. If you get a good AR rifle, like a tactical variant that we're going to go over, crit's going to be really easy to get. But if you struggle with crits and you're seeing that's not stacking up too much, you could get something else on it. But if you can stack this, this gives a tremendous amount of firepower and anomaly power, which will do some extra damage, but to be honest, you're just getting it for the firepower for the most part. Now here are the gauntlets of the cannonball. They are the only gloves in the game that haven't been nerfed to where they have max hit points on them. This has bonus firepower, which is really good. Now notice there's no long range damage on this. So theoretically, you could get an epic. The reason I use this as an example is because you are likely to get these compared to anything else. And it comes with Captain Hunter. And Captain Hunter, you want to get on your gear as soon as you can. An extra 25% damage against elites. That's all damage. Multiplicative. It's very, very powerful. Skill Life Leech is going to help you stay alive a little better. And again, cooldown reduction is good to increase your CC uptime. And to also, in case Blighted rounds does drop off, going to help you get that back again. So those are not wasted at all. And again, on here I have Euthanizer. That is one that you need from a set. You may not have it early on. Eventually you want to get it because it's very powerful. But again, it's very possible at a beginner you won't have this. You're just going to have Radical Therapy, and that's okay. In that case, fill in this extra slot with one of the other mods we're going to look at in just a moment. And then finally, we have the boots. Again, same rules here. On this one, you'll notice I didn't even bother to get close range. I just got some boots that had what I wanted on it. I wanted Trick Up the Sleeves. Now, Trick Up the Sleeves is a tier 1 way of getting bullets back. I did this as an example because I'm able to keep up with the gear I have 100% Blighted rounds uptime, even with this. But there is a tier 2 mod that you can easily get that will actually up it to 40%, 40 or 45%. We'll take a look at it in just a second. So if you get that one, it's better than Trick Up the Sleeve. Or if you're really bad at having it drop off, you could technically use both, especially if you don't have some of the other tier 3 mods and you're saying, man, I'm not doing enough damage, the Blighted rounds are dropping off too often. You can stack Tricks Up the Sleeve with the other toxic lead mod that we're going to look at in just a moment when we look at the options. And then Kingslayer, again, tier 3 mod. It's advanced. It's a nice buff. You can keep it up the majority of the time, not 100% uptime, because again, it lasts 6 seconds. And interestingly here, it doesn't say it. Maybe in this patch they changed this, but it's supposed to say cooldown of 7 seconds, I believe, where you can't keep it up 100%. But maybe I'm wrong. So maybe now you can keep it up all the time, which is nice. Again, it's a nice solid buff, but if you are bad at critting, you could put something else in here. So those are your armor pieces. Now let's go ahead and look at some of the options for other mods if you don't have some of these tier 3 mods before we look at the weapons. Okay, so first optional mod I wanted to tell you about is going to be the optional mod that's tier 2, which again, not super difficult to get, that you can use either instead of Trick Up the Sleeve or in addition to if you're really struggling. And it's called Toxic Lead. So it's right here. Killing shots on enemies afflicted with toxic replenish 40% of ammo in your magazine. So that's an extra 10%. Now do watch out for the wording. Trick Up the Sleeve, it says, while the skill is active, killing shots grant you 30% extra bullet in your mags. So Toxic Lead, on the other hand, just requires something to be affected by toxic damage, meaning even if your terror applied it, now your gun, this could go up. But if there was a case where for some reason you killed something and it didn't have toxic damage on it, this would not work. With that being said, this is still superior. I, again, had the weaker one on there as an example, had no problem running a run without it dropping off, but know that you can either stack these to just always have max ammo, almost always, or just pick this one as an option. So that's the first mod. Okay, the next optional mod is Stand Tall. I like this because even though it's not the most powerful, you literally have to do nothing to get this buff up all the time. So you receive a level 50 over 9,000 anomaly power and almost 13,000 firepower when out of cover for more than 5 seconds. You are almost never going to be in cover, so this is pretty much a passive buff as soon as you start to run. Another one that's not horrible, but it takes a little bit more micromanagement, just a little bit more, is Move Groove. So moving increases your anomaly power by 9,000 and firepower by a little bit under 13,000. So it is very important. Let's say if you're looking down your scope, you're going to want to make sure that you are simultaneously also moving, creeping forward, because if you stop, it will immediately drop off. So that's important to note. Now here is a possible mod that can help out. That's tier 2 also if you're struggling with surviving still. Damage Absorber, it's passive. It's going to give you an extra 52,000 armor, again multiplied but a 20% multiplier. You're going to get the skill tree, and also gives you an extra 10% resistance, so you can get your base resistances up to 30% and your armor into that 160 180,000 armor territory. That's really going to get your mitigation really up there, probably 75-80%. So if you're struggling and dying, and instead of blaming a bug potentially, just realize that maybe you're a little too squishy. This can help out in a pinch. Even think of this as a training wheels modification. Okay, then if you're desperate because you don't have very many mods at all, you can always get dum-dum bullets. You're going to be using an assault rifle, so this is a flat 10% increase. Not as powerful as some of the other mods, but again, if you don't have anything better, this is also something that could apply to you. And then a final recommendation, if you end up actually stacking both long range damage and close range damage, and again, you are just bare bone, don't have very many, you don't have almost any of those tier 3 mods, you find yourself getting into close range, which again, baseline is less than 10 meters. You can always get personal space, grants you 15% bonus to close range weapon damage. So again, if you get in close range and you don't have anything better, this is definitely better than nothing if you want an offensive buff. All right, next let's take a look at weapons. So bottom line, the very best weapon for this build, the type of weapon, is going to be a assault rifle with a tactical variant. Now, for those that don't know, you can go and modify assault rifles to have different variants. I'm going to show you right now. If you're a Dr. Zahid, you go to upgrade my gear, and you select the rifle. You can go, well, on legendaries, unfortunately, you can't, but on epics, this will be highlighted, and you can change from tactical variant to standard, for example. And what it's going to change is going to change your clip size, how much damage per shot, for example. It could alter your reload, crit multipliers. Legendaries, they come with what they are. You can't change them. But note that if you don't have this legendary, you can just find a blue or epic or purple assault rifle. If it's tactical variant or not, change it to tactical variant in this option here, and you're going to get the best possible stats. It's got a good multiplier even after the nerfs. It's got a really high base damage. It's very, very accurate and easy to aim. Now, the other reasons this is really, really good is you get an extra bonus to crit damage. You get extra damage for long range, which you're going to do most of the time. It comes with a phenomenal mod, one of the best mods in the game still, Wrath of the Moloch. On crits, it does a really nice AoE. And again, this is going to get modified by some other bonuses, so it's going to hit more than this. But it's also going to apply burn, and it's a nice 5 rage AoE. You can have this proc every 3 seconds. It's going to help increase your clear speed. And then optimally, the mod you want to put on here is Dark Sacrifice. Now, what I love about this is that it always gives you the 75% weapon damage bonus. It doesn't scale up, but it is as soon as you get into a combat area. starts draining you from full health to 50%. So you are more squishy with this, but nothing really beats it when it comes to just like a consistent weapon damage buff. So if you can, this is the one you would want to put on there. But there's an alternative, so let me show you that. So the alternative, either mod or weapon, is going to come from the Amber Vault, either way. So for example, you had Inferno Seed, but you did not have the Dark Sacrifice, and the Dark Sacrifice is going to come from the Dark from this weapon right here, Fatal Symbiote. This is where you get Dark Sacrifice from, and again, Fatal Symbiote. You can see where the Venom kind of name came from. Unfortunately, this submachine gun is not that great for this build because it's got low damage per bullet, for example, which kills it. But let's say you never got that, you still have an Inferno Seed. Your second best option would be Amber Vault, because that you can break it down and get Killing Spree. So killing shots increase damage by 25% for this weapon for 20 seconds, stacks up to 3 times. Now, some people like this even better because it doesn't drain your life, but the problem is this can sometimes drop off. If you really, people have calculated like the uptime on this, and they calculated somewhere between 50 and 55% on average uptime as far as your total damage buff, as opposed to 75% on the other one. So min-maxers will pick Dark Symbiote or the Dark Sacrifice. Now notice, if you don't have Infernal Seed, but you happen to get a combination of the other two weapons, meaning let's say you got Fatal Symbiote and you got Ember Vault, well, you can take Amber Vault. Now, Amber Vault's still long range. It's got armor piercing, which is fine. Doesn't really help you with blighted rounds, but what's important about this is it obviously comes with Killing Spree. So you could stack Killing Spree and Dark Sacrifice. This is still not quite as good as Inferno Seed, but this does cap you at a plus 150% weapon damage, which is absolutely insane. Very, very, very powerful. Of course, remember, if you have an epic machine gun or assault rifle, you can of course put Killing Spree on there instead of the Dark Sacrifice as well if you're beginning. So these are the 3 kind of weapons that I mentioned, and any combination of those will give you your main options. You're really not going to care about your pistol because you never want to swap off your main weapon, because if you swap away, your blighted rounds drop, which means your DPS goes out the window, so you can fill in whatever you want there. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some potential backup options for mods that are, for example, tier 1 or tier 2. So when it comes to tier 1 mods, if you're really desperate that you want to kind of roll on a rare gun, for example, or if you want to apply it if you don't have any good secondary mod, Fusion Blast isn't horrible. It procs at 31,500 AoE. It has a good AoE range, 5 meters, and it's every second and a half. Just the damage isn't huge. So for example, the ones that are based off crit instead of hit and 3 seconds will hit 150,000 base. So this isn't bad, but it's not great either. It's just really easy that you're going to be proccing this all the time, and it is AoE, so that is good. The other option for you here is Ricochet. Again, nothing to write home about except for the fact that shots ricochet to another enemy within a 5-meter radius of the initial target. It's a 1-second cooldown, and the bullet should do its full damage. It doesn't say there's any mitigation on, so it could, in theory, double the damage, maybe, but because Toxic Round already has a nice little AoE around it, things that are close together, you're probably killing pretty fast. Again, this is not horrible if you need it, but obviously take one of the tier 3 ones as soon as you can. Now for tier 2, there's a couple options. Now, first things first, if you don't want to use one of the mods, or you don't happen to have one of the tier 1 or tier 2 mods that replenish your ammo, this is your way to get on the gun. Now, normally, I am not a fan of defensive or support mods on weapons because this is where you get your big DPS. But if you're early on and you're desperate, this is a way to get your ammo regardless of any debuffs or anything like that. As long as you kill somebody when you have 35% or less ammo, you get all your ammo back, and it doesn't count as a reload. So the other ones replenish 30 to 40% of your ammo, Don't misread this. This gives you 100% of your ammo. It just happens that you have to kill something at 35% or less. So if it has 36% health left and you kill it, this will do nothing. So another decent option is the Claymore. And so this is a nice fire and forget because it does a decent amount of damage, 133k base damage. You don't have to crit, you don't have to kill. Downside is it only targets one enemy. It's every 4 seconds. So it's a good beginner mod, but not something you want to keep long term. Minefield is also a pretty decent backup. So when you kill things, it's going to basically spawn explosives, multiple explosives, each doing about 60k damage, also AoE damage. When you have a bunch of clustered enemies, this can be very, very good, namely because it's on a 1 second cooldown. So you could kill something, AoE kill things, and maybe if it's been a second between the first and second dying, that second one could be proccing this as well. So this could chain reaction pretty well, so it's definitely not bad. And then the other really famous tier 2 mod is Bone Shrapnel. Now, Ultimate Bone Shrapnel, which is tier 3, is one of the best mods in the game. This is its little brother. What's nice about this is you can naturally roll this. The difference between this and its big brother is big brother procs on crit, this procs only on kill. And technically, if you're good at shooting crits, you're going to shoot crits much more often than kill things. What's nice about this, though, is it's on a 1 second cooldown. So if you're killing things rapidly, you can proc this 203,000 AoE damage. Really well powered. This is a super powerful AoE, 5-meter radius, and applies bleed. Very, very good tier 2 mod. Alright, now let's take a look at a couple other options, no tier 3 mods, because you may get some of these instead of the tier 3 mods you want, and they're going to be better than the tier 2 ones. So, Deadly Disturbance is the first one. It's, again, based off critical hits, and it has that magical 3-second cooldown. Now, this is basically very similar to the Moloch buff, because you notice it's procs AoE. It's got a little bit more damage, 222,000 instead of 160 some thousand. The difference, though, is it doesn't apply burn, doesn't apply that dot. So we prefer the dot because it does more AoE damage, and it also will heal you based off skill leech. But with that being said, this isn't that much worse. Another amazing mod is Fortress. Now, Fortress says receive up to 43% damage bonus based on your armor. This is all damage, not just weapon damage. So if you happen to do some damage of your turrets or other abilities, this impacts everything. So it's very powerful. Now, the game doesn't tell you how much armor you need to get the full amount. People kind of guess. If you just get your level 50 armor, meaning you're like in that 50 to 55,000 armor range without any buffs from skill nodes or mods, you will not get the full amount. I don't know what the threshold is. I have felt from just experimenting that once you breach 100,000, it seems to have you covered. So it's somewhere between 50 and 100,000 from just my guesswork. That's, again, not proven, but just from the feel of it. So note, if you carry at least one mod that's defensive, like Rejuvenation, you could probably put this on confidently. This is a rare mod, highly sought out for a lot of builds, but note, for this build, it's also useful. Now, Ultimate Anomaly Surge isn't bad. It's also crit based. You may say, oh, it's only 81,000 damage, and it's a 2-meter radius instead of 5-meter radius. Yes, that's true, but it also procs every 1 second. If you're good at critting a lot, this can proc quite a bit, especially when you have enemies that are clustered together. With that being said, I'd still take something that has 5-meter radius every 3 seconds over this, but again, not a horrible option. All right, another one that is overlooked very often is Bombs Ahead. Killing shots turn enemies into Anomaly Bomb, doing 200k damage, 1 second cooldown. This is a very nice combination. It's not on crit, but it's a great combination of a lot of damage, 200,000 base, and 1 second. So if you're rapid fire killing a bunch of small enemies around an elite, this can do a ton of damage. So again, if you get this and you don't have one of the god rolls, not a bad option. All right, and my final recommendation for Tier 3 as an alternative is Ultimate Bone Shrapnel. We talked about its little brother under the Tier 2. Again, it does the same damage, same radius. The difference is this is on crit instead of on hit. every 3 seconds you can proc this. Again, if you're critting a lot, this can consistently be useful. It can apply bleed if you use any mods that work off a bleed potentially. This could be good as well. This build does not focus on bleed, but just know this is a really good mod for a lot of builds, and it's definitely not bad for this build either. All right, boys. Next, we're going to do a quick tutorial for weapons and skills, and this is probably going to be the fastest and easiest weapon and skills tutorial ever. There's only one golden rule, and the golden rule is you want to do whatever it takes to keep your Blighted Round buff up, okay? So outside of transitions, where you're going to basically get a free refresh, you want to make sure this doesn't drop. The way you get your ammo is by killing mobs. The only time you're going to have danger is if you're fighting elites that have a lot of health, and maybe you don't have full ammo, so you got to be careful. So traditionally, when you get started and you're running into mobs, you always want to make sure you get your turret out. Remember, your turret is going to buff for 10 seconds your weapon damage by 40%. That's a huge multiplier. So your cooldown is faster than that. So you don't have to have it instantly up, but pretty close to that. A couple seconds after that, you want to just keep dropping it. Don't forget, it's also going to act as a distraction. It does a little extra damage, but don't kid yourself. This can be almost no damage compared to your Blood Rounds buff. So let's say Tiago here is the elite mob, and let's just say here Bailey is like a trash mob. So let's say you start fighting, right? And you start fighting Tiago, and you look at your ammo, and you're not killing it. It's not dead yet. And then you see some small mobs. You can go, oh, there's Bailey. This is a little crappy mob. Kill her, get your ammo back, go back. Oh, still not dead for some reason? Okay. Shoot Bailey, kill Bailey. You get your ammo back. So literally, that is the only tactic offensively you have to keep in mind. More often than not, you're not going to have issues killing things at all once you get some even decent gear. Only other thing is if stuff starts swarming you, boom, AoE blast. Learn to keep an eye on your radar. If you see things behind you, roll out of the way. You are like temporarily you have this mini time that you're invincible and vulnerable when you roll. So when things jump at you, this can help you even if it looks like they hit you, it can miss. This is important because this build is very squishy and you can very easily get 1, 2, or 3 get 1 shot, 2 shot, or 3 shot very easily. So this is the epitome of a glass cannon build, unless you go super defensive like I mentioned in my armor and mod section. So keep that in mind, and if for whatever reason this drops off like it just did, your DPS is going to go into the ground. Your whole goal at that point is survive, don't get killed. The reason Blighted Rounds is so powerful is your bullets will penetrate all armor. Not only do they do AoE damage, but they turn into anomaly damage. So think 100% armor penetration. So your damage will be dramatically higher, especially against tough elites. So again, this cooldown is brutal. Just suck it up, stay alive, kill the little things you can, and as soon as it comes off cooldown, once you're done writing your great American novel, you can buff yourself back up with Blighted Rounds and go back into the cycle. But again, if you do that tactic of killing, saving some ads and killing them off in the middle of killing your elites, not a problem. Now, spoiler alert, as you probably saw in my intro video and you're going to see in my playthrough, once you get this up and running, you're killing elites in like 2 to 3 shots, a burst of shooting. Nothing survives. It's disgusting how powerful this gets. So there are your tactics. All right, boys, so there is everything you need to know as far as building this build. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a full run through on CT15 from beginning to end. You can kind of see how this performs, how this plays. If you watch my other videos, I personally am not the biggest fan of this playstyle. I'm not the best at it by any means, but I thought I'd build this because this is really, really beginner friendly and you can feel really, really powerful. It may be your cup of tea and you may not switch off this ever. Or you may be like me and said, okay, I'll use this early on, get some gear, and I'll swap over to one of the really fun anomaly-based builds that may not necessarily kill quite as fast, but they're more fun, more thematic, they're more tanky. You fill in the blank. Different playstyles for different people. So again, This is user friendly, really cool, really powerful, but again, it is really squishy as well. So let's go ahead and check out that full run through. At the end, I'll comment on the damage at the end of the run.
that shot. Maybe you'll finally shut up now. The pod is ours.
Outrider detected. Access granted.
All right, boys, let's go ahead and take a look at the damage here. You'll notice 202 million total damage, 187 million of it is your bled round damage. Enough said. Everything else is minuscule. This is a very one-dimensional build, very, very powerful, very, very good. But as I mentioned, this is why you don't want the blighted rounds buff to drop off because it's such a big deal. All right, guys. So again, there you have it, the Venom Symbiote build. It is your traditional blighted rounds build. Uh, for me, while this is not original by any means, you're gonna see the flavor I like on it. Again, the mods I like to put on there. But most importantly, I wanted to, unlike my other videos that are very, very focused, I wanted to give you guys lots of options to choose from when it comes to mods for your weapon and your armor, in case this is your first Technomancer build. Or again, if you have a friend that you're recommending to the game, says, hey, they're like, what do you want to play as? And like, oh, do you like the Call of Duty playstyle where you're just shooting a bunch of things, not worried about as much about the abilities? This is the build to recommend to them, and it'll make them feel really powerful and really, really cool. So again, either for you or a friend, make sure to share this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Now, if you watch this whole way, hopefully you like my content. All my videos are really in-depth like this. If you enjoy this, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to not only be informed by my videos, but also if you want to help me out. YouTube loves when people hit those notification bells. They're like, oh, you really like this content. Well, make sure to show it to you. So it's a great way that you can support my channel. Now, also don't forget, I stream 6 nights a week on Twitch. I do CT15 carries for free for individuals. We've been doing this for a couple months now since basically I started. Um, it's been a lot of fun. In fact, depending on when you're watching this, on Friday, June the 5th, if you see this soon, we are doing our celebration. We're doing a 24-hour stream on twitch.tv at Leeroy Gaming Stream to celebrate. So 24 hours for 2,400 subscribers. If you see this in the future, maybe I'll have a ton more subscribers, hopefully, and you may laugh like, oh, wow, okay, this has been around a while. But with that being said, I hope you join us there. We're going to be not only having a lot of fun, but we're going to be doing merchandise giveaways. If you like a really positive kind of atmosphere, Discord channel, check out the Leeroy Gaming Discord channel. You're going to find it in the description below as well. So I hope to see you guys there. I hope to see you guys on stream. You guys have a wonderful day. This is Leeroy from Leeroy Gaming, and I'm going to see you guys in my next video.